When we eat food, our stomach secretes gastric juice. Now, gastric juice is secreted by the gastric gland. Now, it's the gastric gland that lines that coats the inside lining of the stomach. And the gastric gland is made up of these three cells, these mucus cells, parietal cells, and chief cells. So I'm going to primarily focus on the synthesis of hydrochloric acid, which is secreted by the parietal cells, again, which make up the gastric gland. Okay, so again, once we eat food, we secrete this gastric juice, and one of the components of this gastric juice is hydrochloric acid. Now, for us to make hydrochloric acid, we start with carbon dioxide and water, and we use vitamin B1 and iodine along with this enzyme called carbonic anhydrase to convert, again, carbon dioxide and water into carbonate and these hydrogen ions. Now, it's this carbonic anhydrase that requires a zinc atom and 2 molecules of water to actually do this. So once we have these hydrogen ions, they fuse with chloride to get hydrochloric acid. Now, at that point, it's still in the parietal cells. So this hydrochloric acid is still in the parietal cells, and for it to be released into the stomach, it requires potassium ions to enter into these parietal cells at the same time through a protein called ATPase. Now, ATPase is what's considered an antiport. So an antiport requires us to have a molecule enter the cell while a molecule is exiting the cell at the same time. So this ATPase protein is driven by ATP. Now, ATP is made up of phosphorus and it is chaperoned by magnesium. Okay, so now we have hydrochloric acid outside of the cell, and that causes the pH of the stomach to drop. And when the pH of the stomach drops, it allows us to break down this pepsinogen, which is secreted by the chief cells, into the active form of pepsin. Now, pepsin is used to help break down proteins for us. So while we're doing this, these mucus cells are also secreting mucus. Now, mucus has a protein that's called these mucins. So it's these mucins, again, that's a glycoprotein that help make up mucus. And it's the mucus that coats the lining of the stomach to prevent the hydrochloric acid and drop in pH from damaging the stomach lining. Now, these mucins, again, are glycoproteins, and they are over 65% carbohydrates. In fact, they are sulfonated carbohydrates, and we get most of our sulfur from protein. Okay, so back to this reaction. So we've synthesized our hydrogen ions to make hydrochloric acid, but at the same time, we're also producing this carbonate ion. And it's this carbonate ion that gets excreted from the parietal cells and the stomach into the bloodstream. Now, when this carbonate enters into the bloodstream, it causes the pH of the blood to spike, and that's sometimes called the alkaline tide. So you can see all the vitamins and minerals here that are used to make hydrochloric acid are also used to make this carbonate that actually causes our blood to become alkaline.